All right, how you guys doing today? We're about to hop into the review of Proverbs chapter 23. The first things first, I just want to make sure I like that video up. Hit a little exit full screen, scroll a bit, like it, and then full screen to make up. You feel me? All right, so verse 1. When thou sittest to eat with the ruler, consider diligently what is before thee, and put a knife to thy throat if thou be a man given to appetite. That was verse 2. So, Pastor Paul in the sermon says, when thou sittest to eat with the ruler, consider diligently what is before thee. the, Technically we should be grouping all these verses together. Verse 3, be not desirous of his dainties, aka like the things you're eating, for they are deceitful meat, right? So these three verses are pretty much one message, right? Stating when you first sit down with a ruler, right? And this isn't a ruler. He mentions that now in our day and time, we don't know what it's like to have a ruler, like a king who could be a literal tyrant, right? Despite what you want to think about the political and economic state of our country, you know, we don't know what it's like to have a tyrant. Why? Because we have what's called a system of checks and balances, where one person isn't fully in control, no matter how much they may seem to fully be in control, right? You know, there's different things set in place. Anyway, not to get into politics, I personally dislike politics, and I don't really know much else besides how it functions. I can care less about the things that are going on and bloody hoopty whoop and whatever else. But the point is, right? It's not one person that's a tyrant. That would be the same as in Solomon's time, right? And Solomon himself was a ruler. So he's saying when somebody is to sit down with a ruler, right? Somebody with immense power and or wealth, right? You must consider diligently what's before thee. And then he uses a colon, right? Which may or may not have been an actual grammatical tool used in that time. But regardless, there's a colon. Put a knife to thy throat if thou be a man given to appetite. Basically saying control yourself. And this is a pretty, he said, grotesque way of using, well, he didn't use the word grotesque. He started to say grotesque and then he switched to some other word, right? But it's a pretty grotesque way of saying, like, bite your tongue, as we would say to speaking. Basically, put a knife to your throat, grab the hand, you know, like when somebody reaches out and you grab your own hand type thing, like restrain yourself. Just chill out, relax, calm down, take a chill. You know what I'm saying? Right? Put a knife to your throat if you're a man given to appetite, gluttony, you know, if you have self control issues, so to speak. And be not desirous of his dainties, aka his choice morsels, as the Bible has put it before, for they are deceitful meat. Meaning, there's a lot going on here that you don't see, right? The life of a ruler, it's very easy to be jealous of that, to desire that, to yearn after that, to covet that, right? But it's not our place to do those things, right? Obviously, they're in a higher position than us. Obviously, it's probably in our human nature to want that. And even though it may be in our human nature to want this kind of thing, right? We're supposed to take a look at what's going on beneath the surface, right? Chances are, if you're meeting with a king or even just any normal person and you're having a meeting with them, chances are they're going to be parading around what nice things that they have to give the utmost illusion of, hey, I have these stuff. Think higher than me. Think higher of me. Think that I'm this. Think that I'm that. Like me. Let me use you as a pawn or whatever the case may be, right? But chances are it's going to be deceitful in some sense, which is why it says, be not desirous, for they are deceitful meat. Because we're not supposed to get tripped up by this stuff. This chapter is very much so of the thinking of not going after the things of this world and us being set apart, and specifically in the wealth department. So this is saying that, right? Don't get caught up with what's in front of him. Put a knife to your throat. Don't become like this person who thinks, right? Their mode of thinking is put all these nice things out. Put these things in front of this person so they think highly of me, so I can use them, so they think that I'm better than I truly am, that I worked for these things, that this is the stuff that matters in life, right? It's saying it's deceitful because it's going to promote that idea in our head, right? We're meeting with this person for a reason. They're putting these things in front of us. These things must be important. They must have a reason. And while they do have a reason, it's not much the same reason to them as it is for us as Christians. Verse 4, labor not to be rich, cease from thine own wisdom. Literally saying, do not work to be rich. Stop your own understanding. And you may be thinking, work not to get rich. What am I working for if not to be rich? And it's the way that God has set us up in this world. He's given us everything. Firstly, He's given us everything. With that is the possibility, to be rich if he has so ordained it. No matter how hard you work, no matter how hard you don't work, you can maybe be rich. And with that, he says, do not labor for it. Do not strive after it. Why? Because the Bible tells us two things. Jesus says, store not your treasures up in heaven, because wherever your treasure is, your heart shall also be. If you're storing your treasures up on earth, your heart will be in the earth. If you're storing your treasures in heaven, your heart will be in heaven, right? And it's a very complicated dance of where you're supposed to be, because on one hand, we're told from a youngin', oh, you're going to have your career, and then you're going to have your family, and you're going to have to do this and that, and blah, 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 blah. You're going through high school, or you're going through middle school thinking, oh, I need to get good grades so I can adequately prepare for high school. You're going through high school thinking, oh, colleges need to see this. I'm going through college, and then you get a SAT, and then you're thinking, oh, colleges need to see this. And you're in college thinking, high school really didn't matter that much for real. And you're in college thinking, oh, now I need to do good so that my job sees that I had a good GPA so I can get more accolades, so I can get more internships, and so I can get a better job. And then you're at your job thinking, how can I increase and scale in my thing and make more money, and hooty woody woo. And then you're doing that, and your thinking is just from one stage to the next stage, and it's this life development cycle, but it's not the one that God had intended for us, right? Mostly because the times are so different, right? That's number one. But two, it's because we're laboring to be rich. We see these things. We've fallen for the deceitful meat. Why? Because all we see on TV nowadays is luxury this, luxury that. This thing you should want, and this thing you can want and have. And you just got to do this and this and that, and sell out in this way and that way. And that's all we're promoted. That's all we see in the media. And because of that, we have become desirous of these dainties. We did not put the knife to our throat, and we did not consider diligently what was before us. But God says, don't desire to be rich. I've given you that option, but it's if I ordained it. But it's not to labor to be rich, but more so labor to get what you need. Have this money to get what you need, because we're not supposed to store up our treasures on this earth. Money's the roots of all kinds of evil, right? So why would we want more of it? We know it. More money, more problems. That saying didn't just come from nowhere. It came with a purpose. Specifically, money's the root to all kinds of evils, aka more money, more problems. More money, more evil. And some people, well, they wouldn't consider evil a problem. So it's not even necessarily true, right? It's not even necessarily true. More money, more evil. Sure, more money, more problems. Not to everybody. But basically saying, don't work to be rich, because we're just supposed to work to have enough and then continue serving God. And even then, when we're working, the whole intention is to be serving God. Are you working in your calling, or are you working for what you want to work for? Are you doing what you think is going to make you the most money, what's going to make you the happiest, or are you doing what God said, this is where I need you to be in my kingdom on this planet, kind of thing, right? When I started college, shoot, before I had no plan for my college, whatever the case is. And then going into college, I had no thoughts of being what I'd be now, let alone even in the ballpark, right? But now that I'm on the path of becoming an early childhood education teacher, I can see like I can see the rationale, sort of thing. And then I could see some ways down the line where I'm thinking like, there's areas for growth where you can start as a teacher, because I've been telling people, I'm like, I'm gonna be broke. Teachers don't make a lot. I'm gonna be broke. Luckily, I'm in a state that pays teachers pretty good, and they got good benefits and all that type of stuff. Even still, teachers are broke, right? But I've just been telling people I'm broke, probably gonna be living in the hood, whatever, and it's a nice humble life, and that's what God has for me, and that's okay. But then, as time goes on and I talk to more people, there's room for growth in those fields, aka there's room for more, right? There's the prodigal of the man with the 10 talents, because they're talents, right? We're going to be judged based on account of what we have, or what we have been given by God, and how we used it for him. Meaning, also, he set up the good works ordained before us, right? The more good works you do, in terms of like, you go through them, there's more, there's going to constantly be more. They've already been ordained. He gives you the strength to walk them out, right? And I am of the mindset that I can't give you the exact scriptural references. It's somewhere in Romans, but the way that I read it the first time I read it was that you get grace and you get more as more abounds, right? Not the sin where sin is more grace abounds, but more so like when you grow in faith, you get more grace, kind of thing. And with that, I think that the ordained works that he's put before us increases in magnitude, and therefore more is given to you. right? Because the man with the talents, right? You go and sell and you get more talents, and then it's like you have more talents to use more talents in the nature of the parable, right? I'm not Jesus, so I can't speak to the can't create the parable or bounds to it, but in that sense, it'd be like you started off with this, sold, made, and now you profited talents, and then you have more talents to use, right? So the more faith you have, in my mind, the more grace you'd get, and the more grace to have strength, to the better and higher works you would have to assume in your faith journey. But message being, point of that gaps was to say there's room for progression where God sees fit, if he sees fit. And even if he doesn't see fit for a room of progression, we should be happy where we are, where we're placed, knowing that we're still serving God and that it's his will and that's where he wants us. If you're praying and all that stuff and you're not feeling it, keep praying and all that. Maybe he'll speak to you in terms of like, if you're not supposed to be there, maybe you are and you just can't see it yet. But the chance, or the point is, you're supposed to have patience, right? And we're working not to be rich and putting away our own understanding of you work to get money, more so we work to get God. We do work to get money, but we work to serve God. I don't know what I just said, but we work to serve God. It just so happens that we get money. That money is used to acquire what we need, but then can also be used to serve God as well. And then verse 5, will thou set thine eyes upon that which is not? For riches certainly make themselves wings, and they fly away as an eagle towards heaven. Basically saying, right, are you going to set your eyes upon that which is not truly there? Because these riches, they make themselves wings, they fly away as an eagle towards heaven, right? And I'm going to check out the commentary a little bit before this, but right after this, but Pastor Paul said in the sermon that this was a common terminology, no, what's the word, analogy that they would use to describe money, and the fleetingness of it was that it flies away like a bird. And we see this all throughout the Bible where they talk about it's threshing floor gaff, shaft, whatever, to get threshed away. It's the wind, it's vanity, all this type of stuff to say it's useless, not necessarily money, but like that's what they talk about with useless stuff. But even so, as a bird flies away, it's here one second, gone the next. Specifically with wings, right? We can't even catch a bird. Say they got wings, they can fly. We can't. You can't catch a bird, it's gonna go. But it's not even truly there because this life isn't all that's truly there. It's here for right now, but it's gone longer than it is here. Everything on this earth is going to be here such a short time compared to what's coming next, right? What's 5 years to infinity? What's these 2,000 years to infinity with God, so to speak, right? Oh, and I'm sorry, for verse 4, it actually says, don't overwork to be rich. I forgot different translations have a different thing saying don't overwork to be rich, because same principle applies, right? But think about it like this, visual learners, how many people that work really hard, come home when they're exhausted, and that seems to be all they do, right? Despite whether that may be their calling or whatever, chances are if they're working very hard and they're coming home exhausted with no other ways to serve, like it's not the most profit, right? If they're being called to it, I don't want to say that they're not being called. You get what I'm trying to say, right? Even if they're not working for the money factor of it, right? Because I fall victim to this as well. It's just working just to work, because I make it like I don't know, it's a weird pride flex thing that I have. It's like I'm one of those people that's got to be working constantly. Why do you think this channel is daily? Because I can't stand the thought of not working, right? And whether this is working to be rich or not, right? It's just something to do, but it's also making me so where I have to study my word. I have to be in my word. I'm trying to force is a strong word, but essentially that's what I'm doing, is forcing myself to be in my word and forcing myself to spend time with God, right? Because I know that my body doesn't want to do it. So maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. I don't know. Y'all gotta let me know in the comments. But chances are, right, you don't want to be overworked to the point where you're exhausted and you're sad and you're depressed all the time because you're trying to get money or you're not focused on God. Right now, if you're exhausting yourself for God, in my mind, that sounds like a win, but pray on it, heart posture, all that type of stuff. Anyway, but through the working hand is a mark of wisdom. We don't live for the riches that come from that work. Those riches are too vulnerable and temporary to be worthy of the focus of our life. Is it saying when it's making themselves the wings, as we see in the analogy, like an eagle towards heaven? The addition adds to the metaphor of the swift and powerful eagle that outstrips all attempts to capture him. Riches will certainly disappear, and once gone, they're gone forever. So yeah, I kind of said that. I'm not gonna lie. Holy Spirit was speaking. Anyway, that's gonna end this part of Proverbs 23. Unfortunately, we only got through 5 verses. All right, that's gonna be the end of the video. You guys have yourself a fantastic rest of your day. Peace.